The Valorian convoy drifted through the endless darkness of space like wounded animals waiting to die. 17 transport ships carried the last survivors of an entire civilization. Nearly 4 million souls huddled inside metal walls, hoping for a miracle that would never come. Commander Thylus stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, his compound eyes fixed on the sensor display. He was tall and thin, with iridescent wings folded tightly against his back. His species had evolved on a world of floating islands and endless skies. They were poets, artists, and dreamers. They had never been warriors, and now they were running out of time. "Commander," said Lieutenant Mira from her station. She was young, barely past her first molting cycle. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "The Krath fleet has closed the weapons range. They will reach us in less than 1 hour." Thylus did not respond immediately. He turned his gaze to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, his homeworld was burning. The Krath had arrived without warning, their black ships descending from the sky like a plague. They had taken everything. The cities, the temples, the great libraries that had stood for 10,000 years. All of it was gone. Only the convoy had escaped. 17 ships full of refugees who had nowhere to go. "How many of them?" Thylus asked quietly. Myra checked her console. 42 warships, Commander. All combat class. They have us surrounded on 3 sides. 42 warships against 17 unarmed transports. It was not a battle. It was a harvest. The Krath were the most feared species in this region of the galaxy. They did not conquer worlds for territory or resources. They conquered them for sport. Other species were nothing but prey to them. Animals to be hunted, captured, and used until they were broken. Those who resisted were killed. Those who surrendered were taken as slaves. Thylus had seen what happened to the slaves. He would rather die. "Commander," Mira said again, "we are receiving a transmission from the Krath fleet." Thylus straightened his posture. Even now, at the end of everything, he would face his enemies with dignity. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, and the face of their hunter appeared. He was a Krath commander, his reptilian features dominated by black eyes that held no warmth, no mercy, no soul. Rows of serrated teeth lined his mouth, and his scaled skin was the color of dried blood. "Valorian convoy," the Krath said. His voice was cold and mocking. "You have run far enough. Your species has been claimed by the Krath Dominion. Surrender your vessels immediately, and we will spare the viable specimens among you. Resist, and we will kill everyone over the age of maturity. The young ones will still serve our purposes." The transmission ended. No negotiation. No discussion. Just a statement of fact. Mira was crying silently at her station. Other bridge officers stared at their consoles with hollow eyes. They all knew what was coming. "Is there any response from the Galactic Council?" Thylus asked, though he already knew the answer. "No, Commander," replied Officer Corvin from the communications array. "They acknowledge our distress signal but state they cannot intervene. The Krath have warned them against interference." Of course. The council was made up of cowards who valued their own safety above all else. They would write strongly worded protests while the Valorian people were dragged into chains. In 100 years, there might be a memorial. A moment of silence. Nothing more. Thylus closed his eyes. He thought of his mate, who had died in the first attack. He thought of his children, who were somewhere on this very ship, waiting for their father to save them. He had failed them. He had failed everyone. "Begin preparations for surrender," he said, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. "We cannot fight them. At least some of our people may survive as slaves. It is better than extinction." The bridge fell into stunned silence. No one wanted to obey, but no one could offer an alternative. Then Myra spoke up, her voice cutting through the despair. Commander, I am detecting something unusual. Thylas opened his eyes. What is it? A vessel. It just emerged from the nebula to our starboard side. Myra's compound eyes widened as she studied her readings. It is not Krath. Configuration unknown. And Commander, it is moving directly toward the Krath formation. One vessel? Yes, Commander. Just one. Thylas moved to her station and looked at the sensor display himself. The newcomer was small compared to the Krath warships. Angular and dark, with a shape that seemed designed for speed and aggression. It moved through space with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. Can you identify the species? Thylas asked. Myra shook her head. Negative. The design matches nothing in our database. But Commander, look at their approach vector. They are not running. They are heading straight for the Krath, like they intend to fight. One ship against 42? That is madness. Or something else. The Krath fleet had noticed the newcomer as well. Several of their warships were already turning to face the approaching vessel. The hunters had spotted new prey. Thylas watched the sensor display with growing confusion. Any sane species would flee from a Krath fleet. Even the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy avoided direct confrontation with them. The cost was simply too high. But this single ship was not fleeing. It was accelerating. Commander, Corvin called out. The unknown vessel is broadcasting a signal. It appears to be directed at both us and the Krath. Should I put it through? Thylas nodded slowly. Yes, let us hear what kind of fool flies alone into a Krath hunting ground. The speakers crackled to life, and a voice filled the bridge. It spoke in a language Thylas did not recognize at first, but the translation systems quickly adapted. The voice was calm, steady, and carried an authority that seemed strange coming from such a small ship. Attention all vessels. This is Captain Conahayes of the Earthship Valiant. Valorian convoy, do not surrender. Krath fleet, you are ordered to power down your weapons and withdraw from this sector immediately. Those civilians are now under my protection. The bridge crew exchanged bewildered glances. Earth, they had never heard of such a world. And this captain spoke as if he had the power to command a Krath fleet. A moment later, the Krath commander's response came through on the open channel. Laughter. Harsh, clicking, cruel laughter. One ship? The Krath mocked. You threaten us with one ship? Foolish creature. You have just volunteered yourself for the harvest. There was a pause. Then the human voice returned, and something in its tone made Thylas feel a sensation he could not immediately identify. I was hoping you would say that. For the first time in many days. Commander Thylas felt something stir in his chest. He did not know what it was, but as he watched the lone vessel continue its impossible approach, he began to wonder if perhaps, just perhaps, they had not been abandoned after all. The USS Valiant was not the largest ship in the human fleet. It was not the newest or the most decorated. But it was fast, it was deadly, and it was commanded by a man who had never lost a fight. Captain Conahayes stood at the center of the bridge with his arms crossed over his chest. He was in his early 40s, with broad shoulders and hands that had seen hard work. His hair was starting to gray at the temples, and his blue eyes held the calm focus of someone who had faced death many times and made peace with it long ago. Around him, the bridge crew worked their stations with quiet efficiency. These were veterans, every one of them. They had served together for years, and they trusted each other without question. Lieutenant Commander Price, Connor said without turning his head. Give me a full tactical assessment. Hannah Price looked up from her console. She was the ship's tactical officer, a woman in her 30s with short brown hair and a sharp mind for combat. Her fingers moved across the display as she pulled up the sensor data. 42 Krath warships, Captain. Standard Hunter configuration. plasma cannons, boarding craft, light armor. They are arranged in a crescent formation around a convoy of 17 unarmed civilian vessels. The civilians? Species identified as Valorian. We have limited data on them. Appears to be a peaceful, non-military culture. Their ships are running on emergency power. Engines failing. They have nowhere to run. Connor nodded slowly. Survivors? Sensors indicate approximately 4 million life signs across the convoy. Men, women, children. 4 million people. 4 million innocent lives about to be swallowed by the Krath machine. Connor had read the intelligence reports on Krath harvesting operations. He knew what happened to the captured. Slavery, torture, death by labor. The lucky ones died quickly. Ensign Marsh, Connor said. What is the Krath response to our approach? Tyler Marsh was young, barely 25, with nervous energy that he tried hard to hide. He manned the communications station and was very good at his job. Captain, the Krath fleet is hailing us. They are demanding that we identify ourselves and withdraw immediately. And if we do not, they say we will be added to the harvest. Connor smiled faintly. It was not a friendly smile. Put them on screen. The main display flickered, and the face of the Krath commander appeared. He was everything the intelligence reports had described. Cold black eyes. Razor teeth. A face built for inspiring fear. His voice dripped with contempt as he spoke. Unknown vessel. You have entered Krath hunting grounds. This sector belongs to us, and everything in it is our property. Identify yourself, turn around, and leave. This is your only warning. Connor let the silence stretch for a moment. He wanted the Krath to wait. He wanted them to feel, perhaps for the first time, what it was like to not be in control of a situation. Then he spoke. My name is Captain Connor Hayes. I represent the Terran Coalition, and I command the Earth vessel Valiant. Those civilian ships you are threatening are now under my protection. You will power down your weapons, release any captives you have taken, and withdraw from this sector immediately. The Krath commander stared at the screen. For a moment, he seemed genuinely confused. Then he began to laugh. One ship, he said between clicking sounds. You come here with one ship and make demands of the Krath. We are the hunters. We are the rulers of this space. Every species we have encountered has learned to kneel before us. I am not kneeling. The Krath leaned closer to the camera, his black eyes narrowing. Your species is unknown to us, human, but you will learn your place. All prey learns eventually. Connor took a step forward. His voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath the words. Let me tell you something about humans. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us from the moment we were born. We survived ice ages that froze the planet. We survived predators with claws and teeth longer than your arm. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We survived wars against ourselves that nearly ended our species. And through all of it, we kept going. We kept fighting. We refused to die. He paused to let his words sink in. The universe has been trying to destroy humanity for 200,000 years. It has not succeeded yet. And you think 42 ships are going to scare us? The Krath commander's expression shifted. The arrogance was still there, but something else flickered behind his eyes. Something that might have been doubt. You are bluffing, the Krath said. No species is foolish enough to challenge us alone. We are not bluffing. And we are not like other species. Then you will die. Connor shook his head slowly. No, but some of you will. He made a cutting gesture, and Ensign Marsh closed the channel. The bridge fell silent as the crew processed what had just happened. Lieutenant Commander Nathan Cole, the first officer, moved to stand beside Connor. He was a tall man with dark skin and a calm demeanor that balanced well with the captain's intensity. Sir, are we really doing this? 42 to 1? Connor looked at the tactical display. The craft fleet was already repositioning, spreading out to surround the Valiant along with the convoy. They thought they were dealing with another helpless victim. They were wrong. Nathan, do you remember what Admiral Torres said when she gave us this assignment? Cole smiled slightly. She said to patrol the outer sectors and render assistance to anyone in need. That is exactly what we are going to do. Connor turned to face his crew. All hands, battle stations. Lieutenant Commander Price, I want firing solutions on every Krath vessel. Ensign Marsh, broadcast our position to Coalition Command. If this goes badly, I want them to know where to send the reinforcements. The bridge erupted into controlled activity. Stations lit up. Systems hummed to life. The Valiant was a predator waking from sleep, and her prey had no idea what was coming. Connor moved back to the command chair and sat down. He looked at the viewport, where the distant lights of the Krath fleet were beginning to converge on his position. 4 million civilians waiting to be saved. 42 enemy warships waiting to be destroyed. Just another day in the Terran Coalition Navy. Lieutenant Commander Price, Connor said quietly. If they fire first, I want their lead ship turned into dust before they can blink. Understood? Hannah Price's hands hovered over the weapons console. Her eyes were cold and focused. Understood, Captain. It would be my pleasure. On the Valorian command ship, Commander Thylus watched the impossible scene unfold on his sensors. The human vessel had stopped between the convoy and the Krath fleet. It hung there in space like a shield, one small ship daring an entire armada to attack. They are going to die, Myra whispered. Thylus was not so sure. There was something about these humans that felt different. Something dangerous. Perhaps, he said, but I do not think they will die alone. The first shot came from the largest Krath warship. A brilliant lance of superheated plasma streaked across the void, aimed directly at the Valiant's bridge. It was a killing blow, meant to end the fight before it began, but it never reached its target. The Valiant moved with a speed that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. It rolled sideways, engines flaring, as automated point defense systems came alive. Smaller cannons tracked the incoming plasma bolt and fired countermissiles that intercepted it halfway between the two ships. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. On the Krath command ship, the tactical officer stared at his display in disbelief. Commander, they evaded our fire. That should not be possible at this range. The Krath commander snarled. Fire again. All forward batteries. 3 more plasma lances shot toward the human vessel. The Valiant twisted and spiraled through space, dodging 2 of them entirely, while its point defense systems destroyed the third. It was like watching a dancer move between raindrops. And then the Valiant fired back. Captain, Connor Hayes had given simple orders. If the Krath attacked, respond with overwhelming force. Lieutenant Commander Hannah Price followed those orders perfectly. The ship's railguns activated. These were not plasma weapons or energy beams. They were electromagnetic accelerators that launched solid tungsten projectiles at a fraction of the speed of light. The rounds traveled so fast that they were invisible to sensors until the moment of impact. The first Krath warship did not have time to raise shields or take evasive action. The tungsten slug punched through its hull like a bullet through paper. The ship exploded from the inside out, its reactor going critical in a cascade of fire and debris. One moment it existed. The next moment it was gone. Silence fell over every communication channel. For the first time in living memory, a Krath warship had been destroyed in a single blow. Connor did not give them time to recover. Fire at will, he said calmly. The Valiant's missile tubes opened, and a swarm of warheads streaked toward the Krath formation. These were not ordinary missiles. They were equipped with advanced tracking systems that could predict enemy movements and adjust course accordingly. They were smart, fast, and utterly relentless. 2 more Krath ships tried to flee. The missiles found them anyway. On the Valorian command ship, Commander Thylus watched the battle with his compound eyes stretched wide. He had seen many things in his life. He had witnessed the beauty of binary sunrises and the terror of Krath invasion. But he had never seen anything like this. 3 ships destroyed, Mira reported, her voice shaking. The human vessel has destroyed 3 Krath warships in less than 30 seconds. How is this possible? Officer Corvin demanded. The Krath are unstoppable. No one defeats them in combat. Thylus did not answer. He was too busy watching the sensor display, where the single human ship was now moving through the Krath formation like a predator among prey. The roles had reversed so quickly that his mind struggled to process it. The Krath. Commander's voice came through on an open channel. Gone was the arrogance. Gone was the mocking laughter. In its place was something that sounded almost like fear. All ships, attack Pattern Omega. Concentrate fire on the human vessel. Destroy it now. The Krath fleet responded with everything they had. Plasma bolts filled the space around the Valiant. Torpedoes launched from multiple angles. It was an overwhelming barrage that should have reduced the human ship to atoms. The Valiant's shields activated. A shimmering energy field surrounded the vessel, absorbing hit after hit without failing. The Valorians gasped. The Krath had never encountered shield technology like this. Their weapons, which had crushed countless civilizations, simply splashed against the barrier like water against stone. And all the while, the Valiant kept firing. Railgun rounds tore through the Krath fleet. Missiles found their targets with terrifying precision. One by one, the hunter ships began to die. Connor stood at the center of the bridge, watching the battle unfold on the tactical display. His face showed no joy in the destruction, no satisfaction in the killing. This was not sport to him. It was duty. Captain, Ensign Marsh called out. The Krath commander is hailing us again. Put him through. The screen flickered to life. The Krath commander looked different now. His scales had paled, and his black eyes darted nervously. The supreme confidence was gone, replaced by desperate confusion. Stop, the Krath said. Stop this attack. What do you want? Territory? Resources? We can negotiate. Connor's voice remained steady. I told you what I wanted. Power down your weapons and withdraw. Those are my terms. They have not changed. You cannot do this. We are the Krath. We are the hunters. Species do not fight back against us. They run. They hide. They surrender. Then I suppose you have never met humans before. Connor took a step closer to the screen. Let me explain something to you. Humanity did not become the dominant species on our planet by being passive. We did it by being more dangerous than anything that threatened us. We learned to use tools. We learned to use fire. We learned to work together against common enemies. And most importantly, we learned that the only way to deal with a bully is to punch them in the mouth. The Krath commander's jaw hung open. He had no response. You have a choice to make, Connor continued. You can keep fighting and watch your fleet die. Or you can retreat, go back to your territory, and never bother these people again. I suggest you choose wisely. The Krath looked around at his bridge crew. They were panicking. Alarm sirens wailed in the background, and the sounds of distant explosions echoed through the hull. How many ships have we lost? The commander demanded. 17 destroyed, Commander. 8 more heavily damaged. The human vessel appears undamaged. 17 ships gone. Nearly half his fleet wiped out by a single enemy. This was not a battle. This was a slaughter. The Krath commander made his decision. He had not survived this long by fighting losing battles. All ships, retreat. Maximum speed. Fall back to craft space. The remaining ships began to turn, their engines flaring as they fled the battlefield. They did not even attempt to maintain formation. They simply ran as fast as they could from the nightmare that had descended upon them. Connor watched them go. When the last craft vessel had jumped to faster than light speed, he finally allowed himself to relax. Lieutenant Commander Price, secure all weapons. Ensign Marsh, open a channel to the Valorian convoy. Channel open, sir. Connor spoke clearly into the microphone. Valorian convoy, this is Captain Connor Hayes of the Earth vessel Valiant. The craft fleet has withdrawn. You are safe. Please hold your position while we approach. There was a long moment of silence. Then a voice came through, trembling with emotion. Human vessel. We do not understand. Why did you help us? You do not know us. You risked your lives for strangers. Connor smiled softly. Because that is what humans do. Now hold tight. We are coming to escort you somewhere safe. He closed the channel and looked at his crew. They were tired but proud. They had done something good today. Wow, Nathan Cole said from beside him. That was certainly interesting. Connor nodded. It usually is. Set course for Coalition space. Those people have been running long enough. The retreat did not last long. The craft commander's pride had been wounded too deeply. 17 warships lost to a single enemy vessel. His reputation, his honor, his very name would be destroyed if word of this defeat reached the homeworld. He would be seen as weak. And the craft did not tolerate weakness. So he made a desperate decision. He rallied his remaining ships and turned them around. On the bridge of the Valiant, Ensign Tyler Marsh was the first to notice. Captain, I am detecting movement from the craft fleet. They have stopped their retreat. Connor looked up from the damage reports he had been reviewing. Stopped? More than that, sir. They are turning back. All remaining vessels are forming up for another attack run. Lieutenant Commander Hannah Price cursed under her breath. Stubborn fools. Do they want to die that badly? Connor studied the tactical display. 25 craft warships remained. Still a significant force, though much reduced from the original 42. They were arranging themselves into a tight combat formation, concentrating their firepower for a coordinated assault. They think if they hit us all at once, they can overwhelm our defenses, Nathan Cole observed. One massive strike instead of piecemeal attacks, can they? Connor asked. Hannah ran the calculations on her console. Our shields are still at 83%. Point defense systems are fully operational. Ammunition reserves are at 70%. We can take them, Captain. But it will be harder this time. They have learned from their mistakes. Connor nodded. He walked to the center of the bridge and looked at his crew. These were good people. Brave people. They had signed up knowing that days like this might come. All hands, prepare for engagement, he announced over the ship's intercom. The craft are coming back for round 2. Show them that the first lesson was not a fluke. The Valiant hummed with renewed energy as systems powered to maximum. Weapon banks loaded fresh ammunition. Shield generators cycled to full strength. The small destroyer became a coiled spring, ready to unleash destruction. On the Valorian command ship, Commander Thylas watched with growing horror as the craft fleet reversed course. He had allowed himself to hope. For a few precious moments, he had believed that his people might actually survive. Now that hope was crumbling. They are coming back, Mira said, her voice hollow. Why are they coming back? Because they cannot accept defeat, Thylas replied. The craft would rather die than admit that another species bested them. But the humans defeated them. We all saw it. Pride is a powerful force, Lieutenant. It makes intelligent beings do foolish things. Thylus opened a channel to the Valiant. Captain Hayes, the Krath are returning. 25 warships. They are going to attack again. Connor's voice came back, steady as ever. We know, Commander. Do not worry. We have handled worse odds than this. Worse odds? You faced 42 ships with one vessel. What could possibly be worse? There was a moment of silence. Then Connor spoke again, and there was something in his voice that Thylus could not quite identify. It might have been amusement. Commander, let me tell you a quick story. About 300 years ago, on Earth, there was a place called Thermopylae. 300 warriors from a nation called Sparta stood against an army of over 100,000 invaders. They held that pass for 3 days, and even though they eventually fell, they gave their people time to prepare and ultimately win the war. Humanity has always been willing to stand against impossible odds. It is in our nature. Thylus did not know what to say. These humans were either the bravest beings in the galaxy or completely insane. Perhaps both. Stay behind us, Connor continued. No matter what happens, do not break formation. We will protect you. The channel closed. Thylus looked at his bridge crew. They were watching him, waiting for orders. He realized that they were looking to him for the same thing he had just received from the human captain. Reassurance. Hope. You heard him, Thylus said. Hold position. The humans are protecting us. The Krath fleet closed the distance quickly. This time, there was no communication. No demands for surrender. No taunting. They came in silence, weapons hot, ready to kill or die. The first volley was massive. All 25 ships fired simultaneously, creating a wall of plasma and torpedoes that filled the space in front of the Valiant. It was a storm of destruction designed to overwhelm any defense. The Valiant dove into the storm. Connor had given Hannah Price full tactical control, and she used it brilliantly. The ship twisted and rolled through gaps in the enemy fire that should not have existed. Point defense cannons fired in continuous bursts, destroying torpedoes before they could impact. The shields flared as plasma bolts struck home, but they held. And through it all, the Valiant kept firing. Railgun rounds punched through Krath hulls. Missiles spiraled toward their targets, evading counterfire with inhuman precision. The battle became a chaos of explosions and debris, a deadly dance in the darkness of space. The Krath fought hard. They had learned from the first engagement. They coordinated their attacks, tried to flank the human vessel, attempted to overwhelm its point defense systems with sheer volume of fire. But it was not enough. One by one, the Krath ships fell. A railgun round here, a missile there. Each kill was precise, efficient, almost surgical. The Valiant was not just fighting. It was hunting. On the Krath command ship, the tactical officer screamed in panic. Commander, we have lost 38% of our remaining fleet. The human vessel is still fully operational. The Krath commander sat frozen in his chair. This was not possible. This violated every rule of warfare he had ever known. One ship could not do this. One ship could not defeat an entire fleet. But it was happening. Commander, what are your orders? He had no orders. He had no plan. He had nothing but the growing certainty that he had made a terrible mistake. Another explosion rocked the ship as a nearby cruiser was destroyed. The commander watched the debris float past his viewport. Good soldiers. Loyal warriors. Dead because of his pride. All ships, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. Retreat. Full retreat. Do not stop until you reach Krath space. This time, there would be no turning back. The remaining Krath ships fled at maximum speed. They did not look back. They did not attempt any final acts of defiance. They simply ran, leaving behind the wreckage of their fleet and the shattered remains of their reputation. On the Valiant, the crew watched them go. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of systems returning to standby mode. Final count? Connor asked. Hannah checked their display. 26 Krath warships destroyed. 16 escaped. Our shields are at 41%. Minor damage to sections 3 and 7. No casualties. No casualties. They had faced an armada and emerged without losing a single life. Connor allowed himself a small smile. Good work, everyone. Stand down from battle stations. He turned to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Krath survivors were spreading the word. They would tell stories of the human ship that had broken their fleet. They would warn others about the species called humanity. And that was exactly what Connor wanted. Because the best battle was the one you did not have to fight. Ensign Marsh, hail the Valorian convoy. Tell them it is safe to proceed. We will escort them to Coalition space. Yes, Captain. Connor sat back in his chair. The hard part was over. Now came the easier task of bringing 4 million refugees home. The journey to Coalition space took 4 days. The Valiant led the way, her sensors constantly scanning for threats, while the 17 Valorian transport ships followed behind, like ducklings following their mother. There were no more attacks. The Krath had learned their lesson, at least for now. On the 3rd day, Captain Connor Hayes invited Commander Thylus to come aboard the Valiant. A shuttle was sent to retrieve him, and soon the Valorian leader found himself walking through the corridors of the human warship. Everything about the ship fascinated him. The design was purely functional, with no wasted space or unnecessary decoration. The crew members he passed nodded respectfully, their faces showing curiosity but no hostility. They were disciplined, professional, and surprisingly diverse. Thylus noted humans of many different skin colors, heights, and features. Yet they worked together seamlessly, as if their differences meant nothing at all. A young officer led him to the conference room, where Connor was waiting. The captain stood as Thylus entered, offering his hand in what Thylus now understood was a human greeting. Commander Thylus. Thank you for coming aboard. Thylus took the offered hand and shook it gently. Thank you for the invitation, Captain, and for everything else you have done. Connor gestured to a chair, and they both sat down. A moment later, 2 other humans entered the room. Thylus recognized the first officer, Nathan Cole, from the communications during the battle. The other was a woman he had not seen before, with kind eyes and brown hair pulled back from her face. This is Dr. Lauren Mitchell, Connor explained. She is our xenanthropologist. She studies other cultures and helps us understand new species we encounter. Lauren smiled warmly. It is wonderful to meet you, Commander. I have been reading everything we have on record about the Valorian people. Your civilization sounds beautiful. Thylus felt a strange warmth at her words. It had been so long since anyone had spoken of his people with admiration rather than pity or contempt. It was beautiful, he said quietly, before the Krath came. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Connor spoke again. Commander, I want you to know that what happened to your world was not your fault. The Krath are predators. They choose their victims carefully. They specifically target peaceful civilizations that cannot fight back. But you fought back. You defeated them easily. We are not a peaceful civilization, Commander. Not entirely. Connor's expression grew thoughtful. Humanity has a complicated history. We spent thousands of years fighting each other. Wars over territory, resources, religion, ideology. We came very close to destroying ourselves more than once. Then how are you here? How did you survive? We learned. Slowly, painfully, but we learned. We realized that our greatest strength was not our weapons or our technology. It was our ability to work together, to set aside our differences and unite against common threats. When we finally reached the stars, We brought that lesson with us. Nathan Cole leaned forward. The Terran Coalition was founded on a simple principle. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. Not because we expect anything in return, but because it is the right thing to do. Tyler shook his head in wonder. I have encountered many species in my life. Some were kind. Some were cruel. But I have never met anyone like you. You risk your lives for strangers. You fight against impossible odds. You treat other species as equals. That is what it means to be human, Lauren said gently. Or at least what we are trying to make it mean. We are not perfect. We still make mistakes. But we keep trying to be better. Connor reached across the table and placed a small device in front of Thylas. It was a communication unit, sleek and silver. This is a direct line to Coalition Command. When you reach our space, you will be given the opportunity to settle on one of several worlds that can support your biology. You will have protection, resources, and time to rebuild. Thylas stared at the device. And in exchange? Nothing. We ask for nothing in return. That is impossible. No one gives without expecting something. Connor smiled slightly. Commander, I understand your skepticism. You have seen the worst the galaxy has to offer. But I am telling you the truth. Humanity does not conquer or exploit. We build alliances based on mutual respect. If your people choose to join the coalition someday, we would welcome you as partners and friends. But that choice is yours to make whenever you are ready. Thylas picked up the communication device and held it carefully. Such a small object, yet it represented something immense. Safety, hope, a future. Captain Hayes, he said slowly, when your ship first appeared on our sensors, I thought you were mad. One vessel against 42. It seemed like suicide. Many people have made that mistake about us. I understand now why they were wrong. Thylas looked up, meeting Connor's eyes. Your species is not mad. You are simply unwilling to accept that some things cannot be done. You look at impossible situations and refuse to believe they are impossible. That is a very dangerous quality. Dangerous for our enemies, perhaps. Yes, very much so. Thylas paused, then continued. Among my people, there is an old saying. The storm that destroys the wicked shields the innocent. I never truly understood what it meant until I watched your ship fly into the heart of a craft fleet without hesitation. He stood and bowed deeply, folding his wings against his back in a gesture of profound respect. On behalf of 4 million Valorian survivors, I thank you. Captain Connor Hayes, I thank your crew, your coalition, and your species. You have given us something we thought was lost forever. You have given us hope. Connor rose and returned the bow, bending at the waist in the human fashion. It is our honor, Commander. Now let us get your people home. 2 days later, the convoy arrived at New Haven, a coalition world known for its temperate climate and welcoming communities. Ships from a dozen different species were gathered in orbit, all of them part of a vast network of civilizations that humanity had, drawn together as the Valorian transports descended toward the surface. Commander Thylas stood at the viewport of his command ship and watched the planet grow larger. Green continents, blue oceans, white clouds drifting across the atmosphere. It was beautiful. It was a live dot behind him, the Valiant held position, still watching over them even now. Thylas reached for the communication unit Connor had given him and activated it. Captain Hayes. Commander. Is everything all right? Yes. Everything is finally all right. Thylas felt tears forming in his compound eyes. He did not try to stop them. I wanted to say one more thing before we land. Go ahead. Thylas looked at the planet below, where 4 million of his people would soon begin new lives. He thought about the Krath, who had believed themselves invincible. He thought about the humans, who had proven them wrong. "My people will remember this day," he said. "We will tell stories about the ship that came from nowhere and saved us from the hunters. We will teach our children about humanity. And when we are strong enough, when we have rebuilt and recovered, we will stand beside you. We will protect others as you protected us." There was a pause. Then Connor's voice came through, warm and steady. "We will look forward to that day, Commander. Welcome to the Coalition." The transmission ended. The Valorian ships continued their descent. And behind them, silently watching, the Valiant remained on guard, because that was what humans did. They protected. They defended. They stood in the darkness so that others could walk in the light. And for the first time in a very long time, the galaxy had something new to believe in: hope.